But once I joined the organization, I realized that, as you call it, right, the iceberg was much bigger underwater.
It's very nice. I can invite my classmate Gabriel to come here to do an interview with you. Gabriel is one of the lead infrastructure engineer at TCCS, and he's one. I know him from my classmate at the Claremont Graduate University's course. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for coordinating this conversation. I'm Gabriel Esqueda. I go by Gabe or Gabriel. I have about 18 years of information technology experience, and now I'm an alum, but I took classes at the Drucker School at CGU. I was on the Flex MBA program, and I also took some of the CSAT classes, so on the IT side, and I'm happy to share my experiences here.
Yes, it's wonderful. So today is our topic is what is unseen under the IT iceberg.
Correct. So yes, that's a very interesting topic to talk about because when you go out from college, when you finish your education and you go into the field, if you haven't had any experience, if you haven't had an internship or been involved with IT departments before, it can be challenging to join an organization or know where you're gonna fit in, what your skill set is, and what kind of value you're gonna be providing to an organization. And in a lot of cases, finding a job, right? Doing the interview and getting the call, right? Do you have what is needed in your resume to get hired? So, yeah, any questions that you have on that?
Yes, exactly. Right now, I really feel like even though I take a lot of courses at the CSAT, but I don't have a good whole picture of what is the IT world. Could you introduce me more about the gravity job?
Yes, yes. So I can share from my experience when I finished my undergrad. I did not know what direction my career was going to take me, and I wanted to find a job in IT, but I expected it to be more in fixing workstations or helping people with their devices, phones, wireless, TV displays. But once I joined the organization, I realized that, as you call it, right, the iceberg was much bigger underwater. And that's why when we were talking about this, you can see the entry path that some um, undergrad students follow would be to start with PC and Mac support, or computer support, we're going to say, or device support, end user support. But the rest of the world of IT is very broad. And there is some awareness on formal education about the project management roles or the cybersecurity roles. But in some cases, there is a gap in the positions that are available, for example, for services or applications management. Each organization and each industry in, in the world, right, each business has a specific set of applications that they use that over time software developers established and started selling. And usually what happens is multiple organizations use them, and that's what you find. For example, in education you may have a student management system. In my background in the gambling industry, there are customer management systems and systems that manage player information, which is one of the most valuable data sources for an organization like that. So that those roles are sometimes not mentioned when you're studying this type of topics. The focus tends to be primarily on the technical side or on the managerial and leadership capabilities, but the functions are not clearly defined unless you have that experience. So you can choose, right? For example, what would be your path, right? What will you choose to go to?
Right. When I was in undergrad, I was studying computer science, Python, and Java. But right now the job market is pretty tough. I couldn't still find a job after undergrad. I continue at my education to Claremont Graduate University to learn more about information system.
Yes.
And right now I'm still really confused, like which area I should pick. There's so many different certification I can apply. For example, get a Cisco certificate or project management certificate or data analyst certificate.
Yes.
There's a lot of different area to go to, but when applying for job, they're asking me to have this kind of certificate or that, but I did not even get a job. I'm not uncertain which area I should go next.
Yes. So you bring up a very good point. What a recruiter may be looking for in your resume. They have keywords that they're looking for. Because think of a recruiter as somebody that is trained in human resources, right? They have a set of prerequisites that they have to fill, but they don't necessarily have the knowledge to understand what it means, what that specific keyword may mean in an industry. Like in this case in IT. For example, somebody in IT management may say, hey, I need a software development. Well, what kind of software developer do you need, right? Do you need somebody that specializes in more open-based software technologies, like something like Python, right? Or do you need somebody that has some C# knowledge or Visual Studio knowledge or I don't know, Ruby? It depends, right? What kind of software developer do you need and what level of experience that person may need to have. It may be in years or it may be portfolio based for a software developer, for example. And those in the industry know that, in a lot of situations when you go for a job interview, you have to have your Git repository already set up to show your work, right?
Mm.
Well, that varies for the other functional units of IT. For example, in project management, ideally you want to come with the project management professional certificate because that shows that you understand what is required of a project manager to deliver a project. And that is a lot of interaction and coordination with all these groups and proper scheduling. If you want to go into networking, well, you got to look at the big manufacturers of networking equipment, because if you have your foundational knowledge of networking, let's say the TCP/IP stack, IP address management, and perhaps how some applications functions, that's not going to be sufficient for you to be able to manage the equipment that the organization purchases. So you have to have knowledge, for example, of manufacturers like Cisco, like HP, like Dell, because they are the ones that are telling engineers how to program their equipment. And if you don't know how to program the equipment, it'll be very challenging for you to fulfill one of those roles. At the same time, there are different levels at each one of these functional units, right? You may be a junior engineer and your responsibilities may be, let's say, to just administer the port configuration for each one of the workstations. But as you move higher on the hierarchy of that functional unit, maybe now you're looking into engineering. That is what I do. I focus on the engineering, so on building new infrastructure that can be leveraged to provide a service. That may be software, that may be hardware, that may be a cloud service. But in doing so, I have to be familiar with the different manufacturers that are out there, the different software technologies that are out there, and you have to be mindful of your costs too. So this is why teams like, for example, a finance team in IT in some cases is necessary, because contracts get managed. General ledgers need to be reconciled and managed with balance sheets, and talking to the actual finance department, but from the IT perspective. And then you have one of the groups that I consider key, services. Services is now being used more to express the needs of the business into technology. A business may want to grow, for example, its physical footprint. Somebody from services would translate that into technological requirements and put that together into a project that project management office through a project manager will deliver, right? Coordinating with all the resources available in that IT team. And that may be people, that may be hardware or software.
Wow, that's really cool.
Mhm.
This map is exactly what I want. The first day I come to my graduate school.
Yes.
We want to have a better understanding of the whole picture. What is the IT department looks like? Okay, so next I would like to ask you. Um, I remember when I talked with you, you mentioned about some company will purchase that's over quality qualified or over quality
Yes, yes.
service or or product. Like, can you
Yes.
tell me more about it?
Yes. In some situations, what happens is leadership of a business has an idea of what they need to accomplish. For example, let's say they want to have a new system to manage their customers. And from their perspective, that's their goal. They don't know about the servers that need to be configured or the cloud providers that need to be used. They don't know what software specifically to get. They may have heard from their peers in other businesses and they may have an idea, but they don't know what it takes to implement it, right? So they may go and purchase something that may be too large for the organization. And you may say, well, if they can afford it, right, it's okay to buy it. But the analogy that I use is, okay, well, now you want to use a semi truck to go back and forth to school, right, or to go back and forth to work. That is a little too big. That is overkill, right? You're using something too big for what you're trying to accomplish. This is where IT leadership and the services group come in. And then we look at what the requirements for the business are and if the application actually fits those requirements or it may be missing some, but the cost is comparable to the service that is needed and what the value that we're going to be receiving for it. Some of the situations that I bumped into have been primarily on the hardware space because hardware manufacturers keep updating their hardware continuously, and the performance of that hardware may be very high, and you may not need it. For example, somebody may go and buy top of the line MacBook Pro computer with multiple video cards, and the piece of equipment can run as a server, right? But all they use it for is, let's say, Excel spreadsheets and Word documents and internet surfing. That was too much money spent on something that is not fully utilized. And in business, you want to make sure that you use your resources accordingly so you can get your return of investment. Just imagine getting the return of investment for something that costs so much and you're underutilizing. This equates to having inventory just sitting there, right? You're essentially having something that is depreciating. It's losing value, not being used. So in IT, that's what we do. We help the business maximize the value that they get for their investments, in this case in technology.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that if you purchase a service, you not only need to look at their what things they are provided, what system, but also we need to mention like for hardware, what time we need to. When did they stop production? That
Yes.
wire, then if you cannot purchase that wire anymore, can your system still be functioning?
Yes,
The-
exactly.
The software that's when do they support until which date? Yeah, there's so many different things we need to focus on and realize that we need to uh, buy them and consider the overall picture.
Yeah, that's correct. And I'm glad you mentioned that. When the life cycle of things,
That's,
right?
that's called a life cycle.
The life cycle, yeah. So even with workstations, for big organizations, because everybody nowadays needs a computer to function, right? In some shape or form, they may be using, or not just a computer, an electronic device, let's say a phone, a radio, a printer, you name it, right? Manufacturers of equipment and hardware, right? They go through cycles of their hardware because new chipsets may come out, new memory may come out, or maybe, let's say, a cybersecurity risk is identified. This happens very quick in software. It's a little bit slower in hardware to materialize. But let's say, for example, people use something like this, a badge, to access buildings, right? And those devices at the doors produced by a manufacturer, let's say there is a vulnerability in them that a hacker group found and they managed to exploit. And the fix is not necessarily in code, it's in hardware. That means you have to replace hardware. In the scale of the Claremont colleges, that would be a lot of devices that need to be replaced and purchased. It's a big investment. So you have to be aware of those types of situations. You have to be keeping track of how your manufacturers are sending you updates and updating your software and your hardware, as well as when they say, you know what, we're no longer going to produce this product. And they do announce those dates up front. So when I started my career, like I said, around this level, that's one of the things that I was also not aware of. I thought, for example, computers were purchased based on the needs of the users, right? If a user said, "Oh, I want this because I need, two video cards because I do graphics design, right? And I need this type of workstation," you also have to take into account how much that is going to be utilized and what the life cycle of that workstation will be. When will you have to replace it with new software or hardware? Those are tracked in schedules. Also, your support contracts. Let's say that workstation, it's announced that it's no longer going to be supported in 2024. And then you say, oh, well, why would I buy another one, right? This one still works just fine. And your designer continues to use it, and then there's a problem. And then now it's not working, and the files are locked in there. And you can't get them out. And you call for support, and they tell you, oh, sorry, we can't support you. It's end of support. So there are terms that you're going to hear. One of them is end of life announcement. They tell you, hey, this is when this product is no longer going to be supported. And for us, it's going to be archived. We're not going to have any information on our website about it. This is the new product that we recommend that you go to. Those cycles may be, for some industries, 5-7 years. For some, maybe longer, right? But that does happen. And it happens, like I said, more frequently on software than it does on hardware. Eventually, some software does get phased out. Some companies get bought, right? You have companies that get bought by other companies. All of a sudden, they include the other features and they tell you this is no longer going to be supported. So as a person looking to work into IT, you have to be mindful that that could be happening. You shouldn't introduce a product that is at the end of its life, because you may be putting it into production and then the next year is no longer something that you can use. You can choose to continue to use it, but the risk will be very high.
I see. That's really, really good info. And may I ask? And then I realize your work is not only writing code,
No.
right? So, what are more things you do for the 7 Claremont colleges?
So my function for the Claremont colleges as a lead infrastructure engineer is primarily on networking. I do support some systems because of these two worlds, these two interactions. We have to be aware of what workstations are running and how they're communicating on the network. We have to be aware of how we can better secure them. To better secure them, there is a separate cybersecurity team, and they're really closely in communication with legal groups. Because as you know, whenever there is a cybersecurity incident, legal folks have to be involved, attorneys have to be involved, right? There is a chance. And we also have project managers interacting with us. So my role will be to communicate with the other colleges as well as the Claremont College of Services to implement their business initiatives into technology. There is a services group that is defining what that looks like, what new services are going to be introduced. And then they come to us in engineering and say, hey, we have this need. These are the features that are being requested. How can we make that happen with the infrastructure that we have? And we're the ones that look at, let's say, what switching platforms are available, what server platforms are available, what coding environments we have available that they can use. And then we build that foundation for our applications team on the other group, right there, for our software developers to be able to develop code, and for everything to be connected through networking. In a lot of cases, yeah, we do work with project managers, and some smaller projects. It may be something that just the network engineers or infrastructure engineers do.
Oh, that's really cool. Because I do realize I have been to some technology entrepreneur hatcheries,
Mm-hmm.
but I realize TCCS are not only that. Then you guys do not only provide service to nearby, but you do much more, including more like finance or gardening
Yes.
or like provide
Central
you
facilities.
fiber wire services,
Mhm.
provide Wi-Fi to all the campus.
Correct.
So, anything you want to more share about?
Yes, absolutely. And for anybody joining the Claremont College's family, if you're going to any of our facilities, you will notice that we do have wireless networks available. That is one of the central services. The Claremont Colleges also has a library central to all the colleges, a big building with lots of books, but also lots of technology that you can use. You have conference rooms that are fully furnished to have discussions on whiteboards or on digital panels or TVs, displays that you can use. So you can do your research, so you can have conversations like what we're having right now. So those kind of services are what we provide as a central unit. And the services, as we see them, right, are non-differentiators. What does that mean? These are the services that the colleges can use universally. They're the same. So when you come to the campus, you will notice that there are networks that are called Claremont Gas, for example, wireless network. And you connect to it, you register, and you get access to the internet. It's not specific to every college, right? Because each college has its own identity, but it gives you basic internet access. Now, if you are now part of a specific college, so you're part of CGU, let's say you're part of Pomona, then you get access to their own specific service, and that is through their own IT department. Like in CGU, there is a specific IT group that supports CGU specific needs. Those are differentiated services. Now, for example, let's say their student management, their student services system, that is different than the rest of the other colleges. So that's why we call non-differentiator the services that we provide. One of them, clear cut, right? Central facilities. Facilities meaning electrical and the water lines, the sewer lines, right? All the basic needs, those are non-differentiated. Everybody gets them the same, right? Now you want to see another differentiator, right? And this is on the term of just general services, dining services. Each college has its own identity for how they want to do dining for their students. Pomona has a group that does it for their dining halls. CGU, I think, is more of a restaurant. Yes. So each one has its own thing, and it's the same in technology. But we want to make it so when the students come in, the technology works. And we're working with the IT departments and the IT leadership at all of the colleges to make that experience seem easier, right? Some people like using the expression seamless, right? That is a goal to strive towards, to make it a seamless experience. It is very difficult to accomplish because nowadays people come in with, and especially in the educational environment, we have students bringing in laptops of all models and ages.
Yeah. All kinds of different devices, right?
Phones of all kinds of models, or PlayStations, or smart garbage cans or smart toasters or smart
Yes, I
anything.
bought a Steam Deck and my controller couldn't even control to like connect to my Steam Deck.
Yes.
They don't allow me to control it.
Yes.
Yes, it's like a challenge for you guys to let
Yes.
all those devices work, right?
We have to make them work, and we also want to make sure that we have some degree of security because we can't just let everybody just connect to the internet. There is a risk. What if there's a bad actor out there that is trying to get information from the students, right? We're making efforts towards securing those environments. And in some situations that causes, for example, the Steam Deck not to work.
Yeah.
But we work on those kind of situations. We've had requests from some colleges to enable them to connect students' PlayStations into the network or students' Xboxes into the network. And yeah, there are ways that we can accomplish those things. Obviously, we want to make sure that the student has a great experience when they're here because they're away from home. They want to have some of the comforts or way to relieve some of the stress that they go through going to so many classes, right, or doing research. So when they go to their dorm, they have a space where they can maybe relax, right? And that part of it nowadays, right, with everybody having electronics everywhere, it involves technology.
Wow, thank you. That's
Sure.
very wonderful. So, may I ask, what are one question? No, what are one advice you want to give to all the Claremont College students?
Well, come with an open mind. Come to learn. Enjoy this phase of your life. Make connections. Make as many connections as you can. Talk to people. I think something like this, where you're sharing, the experiences that people have here from this different perspectives, is great, because I know it sounds, and for some people it sounds like it was yesterday. For some people it was a long time ago, right? During the pandemic, we became a little more isolated, and we built up these perceptions of the life that we had and what we expected out of it, right? And when we come back, and especially here in the Claremont colleges, where you get a very personal experience, you talk to your professors, you talk to staff, and they help you through this journey, because it's not easy. It's not easy to to study multiple hours, to do research multiple hours, right? It's tiring, it's exhausting, and they're there to help you. Build a group of people, build a network of people that you can continue in your journey, in your career. Use those contacts, because people may land jobs in other organizations, and they may give you an opportunity. So interact with them, and like I said, come with an open mind. Come with a mind to learn and to observe as much as you can. This is a beautiful place, so really enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely. I'm really glad I come here to see you today. You
Yeah.
teach me so many things, and also I can learn a lot of insight from your career, your good advice. I feel like, how do I find the life I want? I talk with other people and
Yes.
really try to see how they live their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful I can talk with you today. Yeah. So
Thank you for doing this.
yeah. Thank you. I would like to share more with my friends, with the
Absolutely.
students at the Claremont colleges, and to professors, faculties. It's great we can listen to this kind of conversation.
I agree.
And my last question is from the previous speaker. He is from Pisa, and his question is, how would you like to cooperate with AI?
AI, as everybody mentions when you ask them about the AI topic, right? Yeah, it's hot. Everybody is using it in some shape or form, either directly or indirectly. The approach that we are taking currently is, we're seeing where it is, what the state of it is. AI has been around for a while, but now it's becoming publicly available, right? And it's being popularized. But it creates a challenge, because now we have to find out what genuine work is. Meaning, for example, art, right, is one of the challenges. What does genuine mean? Does it mean it was made by a human? Does it matter if it was made by AI? Or research, right? Or when you're just something as I'm gonna say as simple, right, as writing a paper. Was it you genuinely that wrote that paper, or was too much AI involved? Grammarly uses AI, right? Or in coding, for software developers.
Right, Copilot.
Exactly, Copilot. You just tell it, write me this code, and it gives you the lines of code. But what's going to happen when you have to support that code? And you may say, well, the code works. But one of the things that, if you don't have the experience, that happens is your code may interact with other code. And if that code produces an error and it passes it on to your code, now you have to debug it. And you have to tell the other team, hey, this is where I found the error. So what do you do in those cases if you're not familiar with your code? So it is a great tool to enhance your work, definitely. But we still have to see it as a tool. And
A tool.
exactly. And there are corresponding benefits as well as risks. Um, Everybody, if you go to change a tire, right? You may have a wrench, right? You have to take the tire out. But if you're not safe, you may drop the car on your foot. So it is kind of like that. You have to understand what you're doing and what you're allowed to do. Now, in the Claremont colleges, right, we see it. We see the use of AI, but there's still conversation about how it's going to be leveraged.
There's a huge debate everywhere.
Yes, exactly, and I think that's great. Debate is good because things like the risks and the benefits come up, and they get weighed, and then other tools get developed uh, to mitigate the risks, right? Because as there's some people that use it for good, and there's some people that have the potential of using it for bad things. In coding, if you want to go into cybersecurity, you would know that if you're going to do penetration testing, well, you have to know some code. And if you have something like ChatGPT telling you how to code something, how to find open ports, and how to find vulnerabilities, your job just became easier, right? But then at the other end, you have to have somebody that is aware of those things, like a cybersecurity expert, that is implementing the tools to block those kind of things. So it's a balance, right? And I think it's great having dialogue about it.
Yes, I heard from one of the professor in China. He said AI is going to answer the question, but not solve the problem.
That's a good statement. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much for today, Mr. Gabriel. It's wonderful I can talk with you. Your information is such valuable to me. Without you, we cannot really have a better understanding of the ITS iceberg at the
Yes.
level.